am I ever excited for our guest today. I think you are all going to be changed forever listening to Jodie Patterson. She's an author, activist, beauty explorer, and mother of 5. She holds the position of chair of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation Board, our nation's largest LGBTQA+ organization. And when her son announced at the age of 3, "Mama, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy," she set out to inform herself, shift her own bias, and change the way her community understood gender. Jodie's written 2 books, The Bold World, a memoir of family and transformation, held by Alice Walker as marvelous, and her second book, Born Ready, the true story of a boy named Penelope, allows her 5 children's voices to be heard, showing us how an entire community can be flexible and change for those they love. Jodie is also a long-standing entrepreneur, co-founding 2 beauty companies and receiving Beauty Skin Expert of the Year award by Cosmopolitan Magazine. And Cosmopolitan Magazine filmed a mini documentary on Jodie's family in 2016, reaching over 11 million views. I would highly recommend you watch it. It's incredible. Along with the work Jodie does with the Human Rights Campaign, she sits on the board of directors for the Shabazz Center, which upholds the legacy and teachings of Malcolm X, as well as sits on Mount Sinai's Institute for Health Equity Research Task Force, the advisory board of the Ackerman Institute's Gender and Family Project, and Mount Sinai Center for Transgender Medicine and Surgery Advisory Board. The United Nations recognized Jodie as a champion of change. I think this badass, brave woman in today's episode will teach us all how to be radical parents, stand in our truth, and feel so much more joy in our lives. So I welcome you to Cracking Open Podcast with Molly and Carroll. Hi, welcome Jodie Patterson. I feel so grateful to have you here at Cracking Open with Molly and Carroll. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule with 5 children and all the advocacy and work you do for the world to be with us. So welcome. Thank you so much.
Molly, I'm so excited to be here with you this morning, and you fit into my schedule. I love it when things just kind of work and you know they're meant to be because the stars and the moon are aligned. Good morning.
Good morning. I did love it. Jodie and I have been scheduling for a while, and all of a sudden yesterday she's like, "I can do tomorrow morning." I'm like, done. I'm doing it. Exactly. I'm moving clients around. I'm doing everything so I can talk to you because I know it's important, and it felt the stars aligned with me too. So I'm so grateful. I want to begin just with a humongous thank you. I read a lot of books, and especially as a parent and a therapist and a coach and an educator. But there was something in the bold world while reading your book that made me really want to be a better mom, which I think is the most important job for me as being a parent. And so thank you for being so bold and brave. And I also feel like I should thank your mama. I'm going to call your mama because I love how you start with to rise up and love. To rise up and love. So I'd love to know, like, what in your life and what have you experienced even today, maybe even something that happened yesterday, or maybe happened when you were 4, made you so bold and brave?
You know, when you quoted the rise up in love, it just made me go back and think, which there are so many points in my life where when I now think about things, I actually sit and ponder on my life. It was something that Maya Angelou said to me years ago, that we rarely ponder on the women who came before us, like really sit and ponder. And I took that to heart, and I do it all the time. And I usually have a collage of images of women in my house or women in my family on my wall in my house. And it will be like from my great grandmother all the way up until the present women. And I usually take just one picture, and it's a very iconic picture that captures them. And I have those pictures on one wall And I stop in the morning and I look at the women, and I might do the same thing at night. And I usually think of this one thing about each woman. And the picture usually captures that one thing, like my great grandmother, Lurleen, who didn't smile very often, very serious, very stern appearing woman, and full of love. She took care of an entire community. And sometimes if I need her strength, I'll look at Lurleen's face, Grandma Lurleen. And if I need someone's spunk, I might look at a younger person on the wall. If I want zero fucks attitude one morning, somebody who's in their 20s on my wall. So I have this collection of women that come with me wherever I go. I never enter a space without the women. So that's part of what the boldness comes from, just always having a community of women that are like literally lodged here in my brain that come with me everywhere. So when people are like, oh, you've got such interesting energy, or, oh, you've got this, je ne sais quoi. It's like, oh no, that's my auntie with me. Those are my people that you're feeling. So those are the women. My father also used to tell us, you weren't born to be pretty, you were born to be powerful. And then he would say, do something, damn it. Like it was a call to action from very young, from both sides of my family, the men and the women. Yeah.
You know what you're making me think about? I had this moment. I was in private practice for many years. I'm sitting in a therapist. A client was coming in there was a really tough thing that happened to them. Well, they actually lost a child. They lost a child, and they were both doctors, and they're pediatricians actually. And they came in, and I knew they were coming in, and I was just like, oh God, how do I hold space for this? Like, how am I going to do this? And I know you said you don't know too much, but this is a whole nother story I won't go into, but I had an amazing experience where I got a private audience with His Holiness in India. I went to India, and I got a private audience with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden the Dalai Lama came right here. And he just said, Molly, I can hold a whole country. I can stay with peace and laughter and joy, even in the worst. You can hold joy, even in this moment. You can hold peace, even in this moment. So you sharing your story about Maya Angelou is so powerful. And if you are willing to share, I'd love to hear more about that meeting and that interaction, because what an amazing moment, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, it was in some ways serendipitous, but also in other ways indicative of Black culture. So my parents, John and Jamel Patterson, lived on the Upper West Side. And their neighbor was Dr. Maya Angelou. They lived on the same floor. They lived right across from each other. And Dr. Maya Angelou and my father, John Patterson, shared the same birthday. And so they became close friends, being neighbors, being Upper West Siders at that time in the 60s. And my mom would tell me that Dr. Angelou would say, Jamel, would you just mind reading a few of these chapters? It's a new book. And my mom was at the time was a bit naive and just was not really landing on the fact that here's this author showing her early works. But my mom and she also became friends. And then one year they were planning a birthday party for the two of them. And right at that morning, Dr. King was murdered. And so instead of having the celebration of their lives, it became in a sense, a celebration of Dr. King. So we shared, my family and Dr. Maya Angelou shared a lot. And then over the years, we reconnected on the stage of Spelman College because she gave the speech. And she shared so many things with us that day. One of them was always bring your people with you. Another was ponder on the women. And another great one, she was talking to us on stage, but it was like she was sitting next to us. And Spelman has that relationship with its students and with the women who support Spelman. So when Dr. Maya Angelou stands on the stage to talk to the Spelman graduates, it's as if we're sitting in the kitchen with her. And she had been in our chapel and she had been all on our campus, but today was a special day. That day was special. And she said to us, you were already paid for. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to pay for anything. This is paid for you. Your life has been paid for. And at first I didn't know what that meant, but when she kept going on and on with this, sometimes in song and sometimes in prose and poetry, she explained to us that the women who came before us had spent so much of their lives carving the path and laying the ground and paying for us, that when we walk anywhere, we are already paid for. We don't have to be concerned, do we deserve this? Do we fit in? Are we supposed to be here? Is this for us? Our grandmothers, our great grandmothers paid our way. And we didn't take that as something that we didn't take it lightly. We understood what it meant to be able to graduate from Spelman College when our relatives weren't allowed to learn and when our relatives weren't allowed to earn money. So to get this generation to a private college, the top of the top tier, we understood exactly what that meant. And so I hold, my life has been paid for. I am here with purpose and with calm because of that.
You know, what's so interesting though, Jodie, as you're speaking, I just kept thinking, with all the work you've done and all the advocacy, and as a mother and as a writer and as a businesswoman and an entrepreneur, looking at 2021, what paths do you want to pave for the next generations with everything this generation is dealing with? I mean, psychologically, I think we're dealing with a lot, and the kids and the generations behind us are dealing with it. It's the heaviest denseness energy. If you think of energy and vibration, it's pretty dense, and that,
Yeah.
So what if you could, what paths, what stones do you want to lay in your road for not only your children, but the children of all humanity?
I was thinking about that. I mean, I would like for my children to have the same ease, not material ease, not, ungrateful privilege, but ease. I walk into rooms and I don't get nervous, whether or not I'm protected or whether or not I'm accepted or whether or not I'm seen. And I may or may not be any of those things to other people. They may not see me. They may want to hurt me. And they may not have built this room for me, but I don't think about those things when I walk in the room. And it's because of my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my father, and the lineage. And so if I can do something for my children, I have been working towards giving them the comfort, the ease, the ability, the confidence to walk this life, to enter spaces, and to touch life, all of it. I've been calling it starfishing. And for children, all children, there are limitations because of our age, because of the age, or because of your identity or your skin color that adults really push on the child. And I want for myself as well, and for my children, to starfish. Like, we will stretch out in the sand. We will touch all of life, not just the life for a Black 50-year-old mother. No way, I'm fucking doing it all. Not just the life for a trans Black boy. He will do everything he wants. Not just the life for a girl, Black girl living in Switzerland, like my 20-year-old. I want her to be anything and all things. And so that I'm paving the road for us to be past our gender, past our age, past the titles that we hold so closely to ourselves, and to starfish.
You're doing it. You really are, because I've read a lot of books as a therapist on trans and LGBTQI plus.
Yes.
And I'm constantly learning. And yours taught me the most, because it was so based in humanity and based in storytelling, and not so much clinical or medical or psychological text. So I want to go to a bit of your book, because I absolutely loved your book, and I loved all your children. But the one, for some reason, I bet most people would be like Pennell, Pennell's story, which we'll get to. But to me, 9,
Oh,
something about 9. And I'm going to quote something from your book. And I've never done this in a podcast interview, but I was highlighting, well, I listen on Audible and then I'd be typing and I pause
yeah.
and I type. And it's in Faith is Karma, Karma is Faith.
Yeah.
I actually read this to my husband this morning and he got tears in his eyes because this is exactly how I feel we should treat all people, So this is about Jodie's son, 9. Something about 9 made more sense in a heart sort of way. I call 9 the gift and always thought karma was the inevitable sum of your actions making their way back to you, fate. But as I now understand, karma is faith when you believe in something, even without reason. It is the exact moment when nothing is proven, yet you still believe and you keep moving with no specific purpose other than to find more love.
Mhm.
It was 9, the one who seemed to fall out of the sky one night and land in my busy, hectic world, who reminded me with such gentle force to find love, follow love, be love. Everything we need to do is to be for love.
Mm. I remember that. I remember writing that. Yeah. That's my 90 poo. So each of my kids have a nickname. This one is, his full name is Air 9,
Mhm.
and we shorten that to 9.
Mm.
And then I call him 90 poo. And he's asked me to please stop calling him 90 poo, but I will not. Um, 9 is, he is that. We met each other in this most random way.
Mhm.
I had a store, it was open late night in New York City downtown, and it was a beauty shop. And one night, maybe like at 11 o'clock at night, he rolls in on his skateboard into this very feminine, very old world beauty apothecary. And he asks if I have a decanter for his perfume, because he was wearing like, Yoji Yamamoto or some like very, there was Comme des Garçons perfume. And he came back every other night, and then he came back every night, and he would help me take out the garbage. And we would have these long conversations about music from my generation. And he's decades younger, of course. So I did not birth 9, but when we met, he was in high school, and we decided soon after to become family. And then he moved in with us, and my children that came before 9 met 9, and they became brothers and sister like instantly. It was really beautiful to see. They think he is the coolest adult ever. And he is the youngest, the most fragile of the children. And I'll say this, you always think that that the molding of a child is important. And I when I met 9, there was not a lot of molding because I'd met him when he was 19. So all of his early molding happened before I even knew him. And so what I've done with 9 is just meet him where he is. It's frustrating sometimes because we don't do things the same way. We weren't raised in the same house. But when we try to meet with the most compassion for each other. And that is a practice that 9 has insisted, meet people where they are. It's like a word and a phrase that we throw around, meet people where they are. But when it has to happen, like I cannot force him to have the path that, say, Pennell or Cassius or Georgia has. In any form. I mean, his life is so different. He's got a tattoo on the front of his head, across his forehead. He's got tattoos on his neck now. He dresses in all black. I mean, he's a brilliant musician. By the way, and I can go on and on. He studied at Juilliard for classical flute. And so he's a brilliant musician. But all that to say is my 90 poo is special, and it is something to be honored. Yeah.
What is he doing? How old is he now?
He's 29.
29.
He's a man.
He's a man and he's a musician.
He is a musician.
Uh-huh.
He makes music in his space, in his home. I think you don't have to be published or famous, clearly, to be a musician. He still, I think, would like to be Kanye West.
Uh,
Literally, I was like, Kanye West doesn't want to be Kanye West.
exactly. Yeah.
But
Okay.
he measures himself against pop culture, and I really
Mhm.
measure him differently. But he is a musician who makes money. He also um, is a skater and a bike rider, and I don't know. He's a cool guy.
He sounds like a love and a total love. And one thing that I think, Jodie, that part of the reason, there's so many reasons why I loved your book. And what I would say to people is, I say buy the book, but listen to the book, because Jodie reads the book and you really feel her. She has a way of reading that you feel her. And I loved how you called Nine's mother, birth mother, and
Yes.
asked her permission. So just even that, like, just even like, who would like, oh, we meet this guy in my shop, and then I become friends with him, and like, you just, the thing is, my second book was on intuition, trust within. It's like, you don't question your intuition.
Yeah.
Dude, you go straight for it. You don't even ask. It's like everything. I was like, oh my god, she just goes, she goes, she goes. So that part of you just was like, I'm gonna call the mother.
Well, I think that was my mom's raising. I mean, we don't do anything without checking with the family. And who are your people?
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes your people are not biological. It could be a friend or an aunt or some. But who are your people? And then, of course, because I was raised by Southern women, I'm not going to infringe upon this child without talking and checking with his people. And so his mother and I spoke, birth mother and I spoke, and we have a great relationship right now. We text monthly.
Oh.
We co-parent 90 Poo.
Oh.
And she's always been so gracious with me. Nine calls me mama, and she's never, and he calls my other children and his siblings, and birth mom has never ever questioned that, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
I do too, and I just want to commend you, because there's so many children out there that need a whole community.
Yes.
And we're living in these houses with just our 4 or 5, or you 7 people, or same. Sometimes like 10 or 8 or 6, or I don't know how many people you have. I'm sure your whole neighborhood is in your house. If I
Yeah.
lived in your neighborhood, I'd be like, Jodie, what are you doing?
Come on in.
Come on in. I knew you'd be like, come on in. So, I mean, talking about your children and every one of them, what I loved is, I know the bold world is a lot about your son, Pennell, and your experience and your transformation through being a mother to Pennell. But I also just want to honor all your children.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
really do, because
Because
I'm
I
guessing a
have,
lot of people who call you in your interviews, it's a lot about Pennell. And I'm sure we all love Pennell, but it's like Cassius and Georgia. Like, I held each one of them in my heart, because I'm
Mhm.
one of 5. So I was like, I know what it's like to be one of 5. I'm one of 5. And I'm the second.
Okay.
So,
I,
uh,
yeah, it's like, you're right. People ask all the time, like, can you and Pennell
mhm,
come and meet us? Can you and Pennell do a campaign? Which I think I'm always grateful for the campaigns, because one, my kids'
mhm.
college tuition is expensive, right?
Yes.
Two, I think it's important to see Black queer families, see Black families, see Black love, not just in hashtag form, but us really.
Mhm.
And so when they ask for me in Pennell, I say it's a joint deal. The brothers are coming too. Um, and Pennell, whenever it doesn't work out for his brothers to be there, Pennell gives a portion of his earnings to his brothers, because this is a family affair. It has been a process that all of us leaned on each other to get to. So when you look at Pennell and say, good job, you're really confident and strong, and thank you for being authentic and showing us what Black trans looks like, he has to thank his brothers and his sister
Mhm.
for that too. So, and so I thank you for seeing all of them, because we really have been shaping each other.
Well, I mean, and I want to share more about that, but to just everyone listening who may not know Pennell's story, can you tell us Pennell's story? But I do want to actually ask you also after that too, of like that balance and being in one family. Some people take the spotlight sometimes, and some people the other, and then
No,
how do other people feel? It's a balancing act, It
shitty.
really is a balancing act. And so, can you just tell us about tell us Penel's story for those people that may not know.
Well, I was raising 5 children in New York. I was living in Soho, was married. My second husband, I had a very big life, very busy, big life, which I thought was great. You know, for me, big and busy meant getting down to business.
Yeah.
And so everything seemed to be adding up. I had a lot of privilege, I would call it. I went to Spelman College. My husband at the time went to Harvard. We had businesses and love and children, but there was like something that was not quite gelling in our home life. And I couldn't figure it out. And it was the third child, Penelope, who was so darn problematic. And I say this with a smile on my face now, but at the time I was not laughing. We couldn't get
hair out.
Pulling my hair out. My Penelope at the time was only just a toddler, reoccurring nightmares, nail biting until bloody, refusal to get dressed, refusal to brush hair, refusal to brush teeth, stomping on clothing, screaming if you tried to change Penelope's clothing, even diaper when Penelope was small. Penelope was protesting everything. And then Penelope became a bully. So pushing siblings, pushing friends at the park. And I could not figure it out. I thought more love. I got a big family. So let me sit with this kid more. More story time. I read a bazillion books. I thought maybe it's a dairy allergy. Let me make the food really clean. Let me dive into all the things that my mom taught me about raising kids, good food, warm hugs, attention, reading, story time. But Penelope's aggression and anger and sadness were increasing. So I picked up Penelope one day and sat Penelope down and closed the door. And we sat on the floor and I asked Penelope, what is wrong, baby? Like, why are you so angry? First time I'd ever asked. And Penelope confided in me and said, Mama, everyone thinks I'm a girl and I'm not. I am a boy. And so I thought maybe this child was a feminist. Maybe this child was like a revolutionary, you know, maybe a lesbian. I was thinking, okay, I get that. So if you feel like your brothers, act tough. And Penelope quickly said, no, Mama, I don't feel like a boy. I am a boy. And so that was the moment when he provoked a conversation in this woman to really examine and re-examine what feeling versus being is, what gender is. And long story short, Penelope is transgender, not lesbian, not tomboy, not rebel without a cause, but a trans boy. It took me years to understand it, but that is the crux of it, that there was a gap between the way he saw himself and the way the world saw him, the way he knew himself and the way the world was treating him. And so I have tried to close that gap. Penelope is boy, he told me so over and over again. And so the world must see him as a boy. And I have been working as an advocate and ally and mother to allow people to be who they are, and for the world to see people as they are.
You have really broke down barriers in that way, Jodie. You've done a beautiful job in that way. And there's so much of that story I love. But I mean, the one thing I think for the skeptics or for people who don't question still, he was 3.
Yeah.
He was 3.
Yeah.
He wasn't 13 and always just trying something out or always questioning, or the friends are bi or the friends are gay or the friends are trans. He was 3.
And so I've done a lot of research.
Yeah.
Years, and I'm now the chair of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation Board, which is our largest.
Amazing. Thank you.
So I have not just, shot from the hip. I haven't just acted spontaneously. I have researched and talked about and inquired and sat with. So here's something, just a little tidbit of information. The brain, every brain, my brain, your brain, Penel's brain, at around 3 years old, goes through an identity phase, placing itself in the world. And then again, several more times in life. But 3 years old is around the time when all the brains are asking itself, who am I in this world? And so we would never notice the process because most brains match up with the body and with the way the world sees us. Pinnell's and millions of other people, the brain is different, and it says, I am not who you see me as. So it's just that there are some flowers whose pink is brighter or whose turquoise is brighter, and we notice them differently. Mm-hmm. You might not notice the grass, it's still there. It's fundamentally growing in the same way that flowers do, but you might notice the flower more because it stands out. Pinnell is similar in that his brain works the same way ours does. It identifies it three. What stands out is that it's different from the way we would see him because his body and his brain are different. And I don't use the words that some people use, that he is in the wrong body. I think he's in the right body. It's his body. It's the right one. He has a body that is one way, and his brain identifies as boy, and that's just the way it is, period.
I love that part of the book. How you heard the other boy talking. I can't remember his name. June or July or something was it? You met another trans boy, and it was like that was the first time that where you're like, whoa, he can still stay in his body. It doesn't have, we don't have to change his body, you know.
It was incredible. It was a teenager who said, a young adult who said, I am in my body, so this is a boy's body. This body belongs to this boy, therefore it's a boy's body, and I'm not doing any surgery, and it's still my body, this boy's body. And that was just an eye-opener for me, because there's so many ways to be trans, to be cis, to be Black, to be white, to be male, to be female, and we have to define it for ourselves. Sometimes we make adjustments to the body, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we change our names, and sometimes we don't.
Okay, so let's say that a parent sitting here listening, and they have that little voice in their head. They don't want to hear it. My kid's bi, my kid's gay, my kid's trans, my child is going through something, and I'm scared. I'm really fucking scared.
Yeah.
Because it's going to push me out of my box, push me out of my religion, push me even out of my family of origin. What could you say to them, Jodie?
Scary. Being different is dangerous. I would never say you're not right. I would never say don't be afraid. You can look at right now, you can look back decades, and it is clear that being different is dangerous. People get killed for their religion or their preference or their identities or their lives and their loves. And there's so much hatred out there. And those in small forms and then in large forms, and then that hatred builds into laws, right? It accumulates into laws. And then we have a society that is literally, pointing the trigger at my son. So yes, I was scared too. I thought that being trans was a death sentence to not only the person, but to the family. And that energy, that fear was going to eat me up. I mean, I was drinking too much. I was crying too much. And so but that energy is real, because the fear is real, that the hatred is real. Can't tell me it's not. And what I decided to do was put that energy into activism. So I don't stop, right? And when you start to put that energy into activism, you start to feel really good. It's self-preservation. I promise you it works. If you're afraid of what is to come, fight it, fight in it get in there, get in the moment, be an activist, be an ally. Don't implode. Because it's very easy to. So I want to tell parents who are nervous, find others that resemble your child. If you only know one trans person and it's your kid, or if you only know one bi person and it's your kid, that's scary. You think the whole world, is different from this kid. There are millions like our children. There are millions like us. So you have to go out and find the community that's LGBTQAI+. Go to conferences, sit in on parent groups. There are camps for our families. Find the community. And I can give a list of them that you can hopefully post, but make sure that you don't see your child as only one in the world. That is devastating.
Okay, what you're saying is so powerful. What I love about that is so much that I've learned, and we all know, is that there's the power in connection. The deep power in connection is one of the best SSRIs you can take. One of the best mental health tools and spiritual tools you can have is not knowing you're alone. It's the loneliness that kills us. And so what I hear you saying, which is so powerful for all parents, no matter what your child is going through, whether it's a sexual identity or race or educational, they don't feel smart, they have dyslexia, ADHD, or whatever they're going through, to find a community of people where they don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
They don't feel so alone.
And there's like this, my parents never raised us to use the word minority. I mean, recently, as an adult, I've heard that I'm marginalized. I've heard Black women are marginalized, that LGBTQAI folks are in the minority, and that we're fringe, that trans people are different. But that's not how we were raised. And I actually have always thought that I am central. I'm a central force. And so the world will tell us that there's only one trans kid and it's yours and he's doomed, or that there are only a few bi people and they're not real. But if you place yourself and your children in the center and you create a world where you are central, it feels better. I promise you, you don't feel like the world is ending. You actually feel that you are central to this world and your child is central to this world. And then what comes from that is you start to see where and how the LGBTQAI plus community has actually contributed to culture, contributed to society, contributed to innovation, contributed to family and family values. You actually flip the whole scenario. Instead of us being weird and atypical, you actually see the benefit of being trans. I'm excited that my kid is trans. Trans community has delivered some great gems to our culture.
Okay, Jodie, I've heard so many things. That is brilliant. I want everyone to really take that in. Really take a moment to take that in, because it's not just, it is like what you say is something that is so powerful. But think about anything. If you wake up and you're worried about something, whatever that is, put yourself in the central and reframe it to be like, this is what's going to make me creative. This is what's going to make me unique. I love the quote you said about Pinnell in the book. If I don't know my own child was a boy, what else in the world I do not know? Yeah. Like if I would have stayed quiet or blind, whatever we need to fucking wake up to.
So much.
And we're so scared. And I get it. I get scared every day too. And what do I have to wake up to? My own shit, everyone else shit, my kids stuff, but it's like, God, if we don't know and we open our eyes to that, what else are we closing our eyes and our life and our soul to?
It was like mind blowing. I thought, because it took me a long time to really understand Penella's boy, and that's years. It's in the beginning, you think, okay, girl who wants to be tough or some sort of hybrid, it's not a quick process. But when I finally got there, that the brain and the soul actually dictate who we are, I landed on Penella's boy. And then I thought, what a mind fuck, right? I mean, if my daughter was actually my son and I didn't even know that, there are probably all these great things in this world that I don't know and I haven't understood. And I might not ever understand them fully scientifically, but that they will blow my mind once I'm even open to the concept. So I look for the things that are mind blowing. I look for the things that stand out as slightly different or awkward or weird. And I go into those because that is where artists dwell. When you talk about creativity, artists are in those strange places and they're pulling out things that people have not seen before. And then they become gems to society. So, go try to find out what don't we know in this world, right? A lot of the stuff about people we don't know. And so that to me was just interesting.
You sound like, to me, like my husband's a scientist. You sound like a creative scientist. You're a creative scientist. You're going, and I wanted to honor that part of yourself too. And I know I want to watch the time, but because I have two more questions for you, but one is that I want to honor that part of you, Jodie, that is the creative and the entrepreneur and the artist. How are you cultivating that now? What are you doing now in regards to
my creativity?
Yes.
I've written, the first book was The Bold World that we're talking about. And then I wrote with my children a children's book which is their perception of all of this around gender and understanding and accepting Penelope and supporting Penelope. And that's called Born Ready, the true story of a boy named Penelope. And I'm writing a third book, which is so hard. And it's on radical parenting. Yeah.
Chills.
Yeah. And I just adore the concept, but in a nutshell, I've been thinking about mothering. Mm-hmm. And in the mothering that I'm talking about is not the hugs and kisses and the affirmations and the snuggle time. That is something beautiful, but that's not what I'm talking about. When I talk about mothering, I'm talking about building of communities. So intentionally building up people. And that can be a genderless, mothers are genderless to me. I've seen some of the best mothering done in the queer community. I've seen Pennell mother his brothers. So I'm writing a book around this concept of looking at people who have intentionally built community. And I'm calling those people mothers. And so it's a flip on it's again, flipping the scenario, because I think the last book that we really looked at on mothering was Tiger Mom as a philosophy, right? Where you work, and you require the highest return on investment from your child, from the land, from everything. And I'm changing that. This is about collaboration over domination. This is about, sort of working from the bottom up as you would build a building, or you would build, we're building people, we're building community. So that's I'm putting a lot of creativity into a third book on parenting and mothering. And I'm taking the first book to television.
Oh, yay! Wait till you listen to the book. You're going to be so excited. One thing I want to say before you tell me about the television show is you've turned mothering into a verb.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a power structure.
It's an action.
It is. And it is, it's social infrastructure.
It is. So yeah.
I was looking at this. Yeah. I was looking at I went to a museum in Switzerland, and there was a display, an exhibit on city planning. And it talked about the cities that have failed and the ones that have succeeded. We fail when we add highways and we think efficiency is going to make a better life. And we succeed when we have libraries and parks and squares, right? Like Times Square actually became a square at a certain point. And so I thought mothers are like city planners. It is our job to bring lots of diverse people, not to efficiency, but to humanity and to happiness. And so I started thinking of my own home, like this house that I live in, as a city, gathering the people into the kitchen with lots of chargers and cell phones, but gathering them in the kitchen, as opposed to locking ourselves off in our bedrooms and like these private units. So that concept started to make me think about mothering as building and mothers as social infrastructure, like how we really root the community.
Honey, you're on something big. You know this. I kind of got a source.
Yeah.
It's big. It's going to be great. That is amazing. And I want to hear about the TV show, but before we leave, I just want to make sure I have time, because I'm going to be respectful of your time. So the ultimate question I ask everyone, like, you've had a lot of cracking open moments in your life.
Yeah. Sitting
here today in this moment, if you had to think about one of the most pivotal cracking open moments of your life and how it changed Jodie, like you, what would that be for you?
Oh, so how it changed Jodie. That was the point of the question that changed my answer. So here's a strange thing. Everything I do is mothering. I talk about mothering. I'm known for my mothering. But the pivotal turning point for this woman, was when I detached from my kids. And I'll explain that. Untethering is not something women are taught. We're taught to tether to our families, to our parents, to our morals. Stay close to home, don't stray, go to a good school, stay close to your job. We are anchored. Women are always, and girls are always taught to anchor. And so when I found myself in my mid-40s with 5 children, I had been anchored to husbands, to children, to my morals, to my house, right? And then I went through a divorce, right? which can feel like a sinkhole. And my children left me every other week to go see their dad. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
What am I, who am I mothering? Who am I wifing? No one. The house was empty for a week. And I sunk low and then I rose so high. It is imperative that women experience being untethered because women need to experience freedom. And during the times when my kids aren't here, I have sex on the kitchen counter. I mean, it's unheard of for a mother, right? I don't make breakfast.
Yeah.
I eat leftovers. I walk for hours, you know, if I have time, and I don't check in with anyone. I listen to rap music. I write down lyrics. I pretend that I'm the rapper. I find myself in places that no one else would see me. In certain authors and certain musicians, I get lost. And so untethering from my children for that week was pivotal. I came back to them when they came with more answers, better solutions, more creativity. I was funnier.
Yeah.
I had experienced freedom. So I think the point that I'm making is, as women, we have to untether, find places, if it's a day or a week. And I don't mean untethering from like bad things. I mean, untether from the good stuff, untether from your kids. It sounds scary, but I promise, I don't know the science of it, but it works. You come back to them and you always come back better, stronger, more creative, and a better leader.
Okay, you're so funny. This is so beautiful, and I'm so glad that was your answer. You have no idea, because I somehow became, you start in your therapy practice as like I was kind of the child expert because I started this social emotional learning program in San Francisco, and I was a teacher, and I worked with families and children, and blah blah. So people started sending me their kids, right? And then they started saying, "Hey, can I come too? Hey, can my husband come too?" Right? And then I ended up, my practice was women in transition. That's what I would call it: women in transition, transition from jobs, transitions from their marriage. So I worked with a lot of women trying to get out of their marriage or thinking about leaving their marriage. So I coined this phrase when they were getting ready to get their divorce and they were in the shit of it, the shitty, shitty parts. And I said, hey, let me tell you, there's a little secret to divorce. Secret to divorce. And they're like, you got to be kidding me. This is hell. How am I going to leave my kids? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And I said, the secret's going to be this. You're actually going to be packing your kids up to go to their dads or their moms.
Yeah.
And you're going to breathe a deep breath of sigh of relief, because you're going to really get the concept that your children were born from you, but they are not yours.
And you were not theirs.
And you are not theirs. And you will find you. You will come back to you. Right. So that was the most beautiful answer, Jodie, because I think the ultimate word when I think about you, ultimate, is freedom. You give people the permission to be free.
I learned that
color, their skin, sexual identity, mothering, children, free. And that's all people want. In the end, whenever I ask people, like, what do you want? You're like, 2 answers.
Love and freedom.
Well, then 3. Okay, you gave me 1. Love, freedom, and peace or contentment.
Yeah.
Never money, never big house, never fancy car,
Those are like, but I learned the freedom from my kids. And when I was watching Pinnell, I said, because this is the thing, we oftentimes want more for our children. I was telling Penelope, be free, be yourself, be authentic, stand up to the world, tell them who you are. But I wasn't doing the same thing. I was telling a 3-year-old to take, ownership of his life. And I wasn't, as this 40-plus-year-old woman. And so, damn it, I wanted the freedom too. I wanted the very thing that Penelope was demanding, which was ownership of myself. And it took so much time. And of course, life does not become like perfect. I don't have $1 million. I don't have, but the joy, and you can see it on my face because I'm so excited this conversation went in this direction. It is this feeling of starfishing. I'm touching the world in a way I'd never done before. So I hope that freedom registers. I hope the
registers or resonates. Both.
I hope I'm pouring out to the world this concept of freedom, because that is the key. That is the key to it all.
You are. You truly, truly are. And what a gift this world is to have you, Jodie. I cannot begin to thank you for taking the time to. I was a stranger to Jodie. She didn't know who I was. She said yes. She said yes to a friend of a friend of a connection of a connection. You know how that all goes. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time and the energy to show up as beautiful you, as freeing you, and teaching us all how to be starfish and spread our, what are they, legs? What are they?
We'll call them arms.
Arms.
Yeah, put them in human form, spread the arms. Well, this was a pleasure talking with you, and I hope we stay in touch.
For sure. You may not want to hear as much as I keep in touch with you, but yes, I will be reaching out to you. I will be reaching out to you, Jodie. You are such a gift. You are such a gift. Hey, if you're interested in a free gift, I want to tell you about my body emotion map. I created this map that shows the entire body and what emotions we hold in what organs. Not only what emotions we hold in the organs, but how can we release these emotions so that our body does not become toxic. We don't hold bad energy and we can feel lighter, freer, and more alive. So if you're interested in this free gift, please head over to mollycarrollprograms.com/map. mollycarrollprograms.com/map, MAP, to get your free body emotion map that will help you feel so much more alive and better. Please, you won't regret it. Head on over there.